Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Todoroki's Conspiracy. This will be Part 3, Chapters 5 and 6. Chapter 5. Part 5, Izuku's Friends. Izuku Midoriya doesn't know much about having friends, if he's being completely honest. Which he is, because why would he lie about something like that? He doesn't really know how much he's supposed to speak, or when he's allowed to hug a companion, or if he's allowed to take people saying, "I'm not here to make friends," as a declaration of I need friends or not. To be fair, Izuku Midoriya only has Kacchan as a reference point, so he can't really be faulted for his ignorance, and Wikipedia doesn't really explain friendship well enough, so he's basically clueless. He's sure that if friendship was a quirk, Izuku would be able to analyze it and comprehend its nature. After asking 20 questions and going on a mumbling tangent, that would probably make people back away in fear. But it isn't. The art of making friends isn't something that Izuku can dissect and pull apart until he understands each of its many facets, so he's mainly just stumbling around blindly. It's not bad. Sure, it's a little bit awkward, but Izuku knows literally nothing when it comes to boundaries and personal space, and he's not an expert, but he's pretty sure that most people don't bond over nearly getting killed, and then apprehending a rather infamous villain, and his friends all seem to have different needs, and wants that Izuku is trying to fulfill and adhere to, but Izuku likes it. He really does. He appreciates each and every one of his friends. As to be expected, he is closer to some of his companions than he is with others. Izuku thinks that it's because of the events that he's gone through with his closer friends that has led them to forming a tighter bond. Wikipedia did say that trauma and highly intense events can bring people together, so that explains it quite a bit. It definitely explains the 4 friends that stick closest to Izuku, like Uraraka, who he broke 3 limbs and risked his life for, and who saved his life during the entrance exam, and Todoroki and Ida, who he also risked his life for during Hosu, and even Shinso, who he didn't risk his life for, because at this point his friends seemed to be worrying about his penchant for throwing himself into harm's way in order to protect them, but he can't help it. But he did have an emotional shouting fest with him over villainy and making the future your own, before throwing the general ed kid out of bounds during the sports festival. And when you look at all those events, where adrenaline was running high every single time, it only makes sense that these 4 seem to stick closest to Izuku, and so Izuku has friends. And what's more, these aren't his only friends. He, Izuku Deku Midoriya, has more than 4 friends. He almost doesn't believe it either, but it's different now. UA's amazing, and so are its students. They're so nice and kind, and they seem to like him too. Nothing makes Izuku happier than walking into class and being greeted with, get this, smiles, smiling faces, and they're aimed at him. Him. Izuku likes to think that he's befriended most of his class by now, which is nice because they're almost done with the first semester, and it feels good to know that he's come so far from the useless, worthless, friendless, quirkless Deku that he used to be. He's getting sidetracked. Oops. But yeah, Izuku has friends. He has Sue, who is blunt but not rude, and greets him in the morning when he passes her. Then there's Kirishima, who's always pumped up and seems to have endless compliments. Izuku always feels like he's ready for anything after hearing Kirishima speak. Tokiyami's really cool, and they've done that cool thing that friends do when they look at each other in the eyes before nodding in sync. In sync. He's never been in sync with a friend, before carrying on with their day. Hagekure is funny, and Jiro is witty, and Kaminari is always there to say something stupid yet oddly encouraging. And then there's Kota, who doesn't speak, but his smile says everything it needs to, and Yaoyorozu, who is polite and checks up on him when he's broken too many bones to be considered normal, and apparently that limit is 1, which Izuku can sort of understand, and Ashido, who is always pumped for anything so long as there's no homework, and that's not even mentioning the rest of his peers, except for Kacchan, who still seems ready to explode him at any moment. Friends. He doesn't always know how to react to them, but they're great. They're really, really great. Sometimes Izuku can't do anything but just sit at his lunch table and stare at his friends in awe as they take time to include him in their daily interactions, and sometimes he sheds a tear or 2, or a lot more, but he's an easy crier just like his mom, so it's to be expected by now. And honestly, why wouldn't he cry tears of joy? Just look at his amazing, extraordinary, wonderful friends. They're so great. And they're looking at him with varying emotions, ranging from concern to amusement to, is Ida tearing up? What's wrong, Ida? Izuku asks, but Ida just shakes his head, robotically reaching up to wipe his eyes. It is nothing, Midoriya. I'm just very happy, Ida expresses, and Izuku smiles. He adores his friends, and he's glad when they're glad. We feel the same way, Midoriya, Todoroki says calmly beside him, and oh no, is Izuku still mumbling? Yes, Shinso says helpfully, and Izuku squeaks before slapping a hand over his mouth. You've been muttering for about 5 minutes now. Oh, sorry, Izuku says immediately, because by now it's instinct to apologize over his habit. He knows how uncomfortable it makes others. It's always made others uncomfortable, but he just can't seem to keep his mouth shut. Don't apologize. Todoroki cuts off his thoughts, and Izuku doesn't know if he was saying all that aloud or if Todoroki could just see what he was thinking through his expression. It doesn't make us uncomfortable. It's just who you are, Midoriya. Yeah, Uraraka exclaims, throwing a fist into the air excitedly. It's part of the Deku charm, don't you think? Izuku can't help but blush at her words, flustered by the kindness that they give him so openly, so freely. A few tears fall from his eyes, but he's beaming at them all the while. Thank you, guys, Izuku says, sincerity laced into every word. You guys are some of the best friends I've ever had. If Izuku's eyes were open, rather than shut from the strength of his grin, he would have seen the dual effects that his words had instilled in his companions. He would have seen how they glowed at the compliment, only to have bitterness wash over their very forms at the realization that Izuku seemed to have problems making friends. It'd be a conversation yet to come, the problems of Izuku's past, but it was one that his dear friend seemed to be picking up on, if only a little. But they're not open, so when Izuku opens his eyes, he just sees the determined expressions on their faces instead. He doesn't question the cause of this emotion, because who is he to question his friends on something like that? And on that note, at what point in a friendship is one allowed to start asking questions about the cause of one's determination for matters beyond, why do you want to be a hero? Izuku wishes that Wikipedia could just be a little bit more useful sometimes. No, Izuku just smiles back at his friends, at his 4 closest friends who have recently seemed to only grow closer. He just smiles and wishes that the moment will never end. And even though it does end, Izuku's all right with that, because there's going to be so many more moments that he can share with them, and so many chances to create memories. After all, exams are only a few weeks away, and summer break is nearly here. Izuku's sure that nothing will go too badly before break. Izuku is, sadly, wrong. Chapter 6. Aizawa's Observations, Part 2. Shota had his suspicions before, but now he's positive that something's going on with the problem child, or at the very least with Todoroki. Nothing that Nomuri or Hisashi could say will persuade him otherwise. To start, Todoroki's no longer simply following Midoriya around like a plant that longs for sunlight. No, he's acting oddly around some of the teachers, including All Might. No, especially All Might. The first thing Shota notices is the glaring. It's not unusual for Todoroki to go through the day with a blank face, but it is unusual for the boy to actually frown. The normal expression is one that holds no negativity, but also no positivity, almost like a blank slate or an unpainted canvas. The animosity that Todoroki holds in his expression now, it's clear as day, with narrowed eyes and downturned lips, but the glaring isn't everything, no. No, Shota has caught Todoroki frosting over quite a few times, the desk covered in a thin sheet of ice when All Might has entered the room. He's caught the boy looking at the number 1 hero with disgust, as if he's bitten into rotten sewage. He's seen the boy keep as much distance as possible, tugging Midoriya away from the symbol of peace all the while, and this is just how Todoroki has been acting around All Might. Around the other teachers, it seems that Todoroki is content to just glare at them, but Shota isn't sure why. And if that wasn't bad enough, now Midoriya's other friends seem to be picking up on some of Todoroki's habits, which is bizarre, because Midoriya has never been the type to befriend the students who live to defy authority. The problem child's closest friends are all students that Shota has easily been able to consider rule followers for the most part, ones who listen to their teachers and have no complaints for anything other than too much homework. But something has changed, and now Shota's noticing. He notices how Uraraka is clenching her fist whenever All Might gets too close, or how Ida always comes back from training tenser than when he left, how even Shinso seems to be growing more wary as time goes by, which doesn't make sense. Shota tries to ask once. It's when he's training Shinso after school, the boy focusing on his workout and eyes narrowed in concentration. Is there any reason that your little group has been acting so strangely? Shota asks, and watches the boy for any reactions. He spots a few. His posture tenses, his jaw sets and his eyes narrow even more as he continues to do push-ups. I don't know what you're talking about. Shinso grits out and Shota sighs. Yes, you do, but I'll spell it out for you if you really prefer that. He's met with silence, so he takes that as his cue to continue. You've been closing yourself off. Ida is twice as worried when he finishes hero training. Uraraka looks ready to punch someone. Todoroki's acting like a rebellious teen. I know there's something connecting all of this because all 4 of you are close and have changed at nearly the same time, so I'll ask you again. What's going on? Shinso snorts, and Shota can't help but raise an eyebrow at the noise. Nothing to worry about, Sensei. Shinso draws, the title holding an edge that Shota doesn't understand the reasoning for. It's my job to worry about my students. Shota responds, and it seems that the words get through to Shinso because the boy stops doing push-ups and looks up, making eye contact with him for the first time in a week. "It is, isn't it?" Shinso asks. "Yes," Shota says. "So can you tell me what's going on so that I can handle it?" Shota sees the exact moment that Shinso completely closes off, eyes going blank as if he's somehow brainwashed himself. The same frown that Todoroki has been sporting appears on Shinso's face, and the boy looks away. "That's all it is, huh?" Shinso mutters, and then, to Shota's surprise, the boy rolls his eyes at him. "It's nothing, Sensei," Shinso says again. "We're just tired." And Shota doesn't believe that excuse for 1 second, but he sees that Shinso won't open up any further, and so he nods and pretends that he believes the boy. He doesn't ask any more questions after that day, instead observing his students. At the very least, he notices that the problem child himself seems to be acting normally. In fact, the kid seems happier than ever before. He can only hope that whatever issues his students are having, that they're ones that will pass after finals. Oh, how his hopes were misplaced. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 6 of Todoroki's Conspiracy. Chapter 7 will be next. Hope you all are still enjoying this fic, and as always, thank you so much for listening.